Thanks for joining us on this edition of Business Daily. I'm Incheon in Seoul. We have plenty of stories lined up for you today, so let's get started with a glimpse of the day's highlights. Korea and 6 Central American countries agree on a free trade deal, opening a new door of opportunities in the region. Countries around the world are slashing their corporate tax rates in an attempt to boost their sluggish economies, but Korea may be moving in the opposite direction. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. After 18 months of negotiations, Korea has sealed a free trade deal with a bloc of 6 Central American nations. The two sides will officially sign the agreement next year. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
Korea will soon add another free trade agreement to its portfolio. Seoul and a bloc of 6 Central American nations, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Panama, and Guatemala, have virtually reached a free trade deal, with negotiations complete between trade ministers of respective countries. Korea is the first country to strike a deal with these 6 nations at once, giving Seoul first-mover advantage in the Central American market. Along with free trade pacts with the U.S. and Canada in the north and Chile, Peru, and Colombia in the south, the latest deal establishes a network that connects Korea with the Americas. Korea's exports to the 6 nations came to $3.2 billion in 2015, falling about 13% on year. It's been on a downward trend, but with the agreement, exports could gain significant momentum. All participating countries will immediately scrap tariffs or gradually on over 95% of products. The Central American countries will open their markets for Korea's key export items, including steel and automobiles, as well as products made by small and medium-sized companies like cosmetics and auto parts. Conversely, Korea will open up its market for coffee, sugar, and tropical fruits. But it will still maintain tariffs on selected agricultural products, such as rice and hot peppers, in order to minimize the fallout on the domestic market. On top of that, the opening of the service markets in the Central American bloc will likely create business opportunities for Korean companies, especially in the entertainment and construction sectors. With that, the deal is expected to give Korean companies an upper hand in the market, as well as give the country's slowing exports a much-needed shot in the arm.
Recent movements toward protectionism have been led by advanced countries, and emerging economies or developing countries have been hit as a result. So it's a good strategy for Korea to establish new trade deals and step up cooperation with diversified regions, like Central America, and even with Southeast Asian countries or other emerging markets down the line.
Korea and the Central American countries will now carry out follow-up procedures with the aim of officially inking the deal by the first half of next year. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
Crude oil prices slipped overnight in the U.S., with the benchmark WTI for December delivery shedding 0.5% to trade at $45.57 a barrel. Now, the drop comes after weekly Energy Information Administration data showed on Wednesday that U.S. crude oil inventories rose 5.3 million barrels as of Friday last week, exceeding expectations by 1.5 million barrels. Amid market fluctuations, all eyes are on an informal meeting set to take place between Russia, a non-OPEC member, and Saudi Arabia, the oil cartel's biggest producer. Moscow has signaled that it's ready to support OPEC's decision to freeze output levels and said it sees a great chance of the group agreeing on terms this month. OPEC members are expected to renew their efforts to build a consensus before a crucial meeting in Vienna at the end of this month. Over half of the listed firms of Korea's 10 biggest business groups saw their sales slide in the third quarter, having struggled with falling exports amid low global demand. Data from Korea Exchange on Thursday showed the combined sales of 67 listed companies under the country's top 10 conglomerates came to $207 billion, down over 4.5% on year. By individual companies, Hamsa Electronics saw the largest drop, with sales plunging over $3.2 billion on year on the back of its Galaxy Note 7 debacle. By group, SK sales dropped the most, falling $3.1 billion, followed by Hyundai Heavy Industries and Samsung Group. Now, Samsung Electronics is far from alone in building tools for the future smart car. Korea's top wireless carrier this week partnered with BMW Korea to conduct what it says was the world's first field testing of a 5G network to a running vehicle. Our Eunice Kim takes us there.
While driving in unpredictable road conditions, you may have wished cars on the road were able to communicate with each other. That's exactly the idea SK Telecom put to the test this week, partnering with BMW Korea at its driving range in Incheon. 2 vehicles on the road. As the front car abruptly stops at a blind corner, the car coming from behind is alerted with an instantaneous video sent from the car ahead. A nearby drone transmits high-definition aerial video as well, allowing the second car to change course according to real-time road conditions. The superfast file sharing is made possible through next-generation 5G technology, which is projected to be fully commercialized by the year 2020. And while the 5G mobile terminals installed in the 2 test vehicles were big enough to fill the trunk, the idea is to shrink them to smartphone size by the time the technology hits the market. And when it does, the powerful 5G network would connect the car to a plethora of data, from changing traffic signals, sharp curbs, to lightning-fast video and other warning signals from an enhanced traffic infrastructure of the near future.
Such real-time multimedia files generate a heavy load of traffic. Unlike 4G LTE, 5G is able to quickly transmit large amounts of data with no delays and cost-effectively.
The pumped-up digital infrastructure would no doubt be critical in the coming age of driverless cars. As such, SK Telecom is working with the likes of BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Ericsson, and Huawei as a member of the 5G Automotive Association to work towards creating a global standard before the next generation speed hits real-world highways. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
The proportion of people self-employed among workers here in Korea is said to be too high compared to the country's socioeconomic conditions. Citing data from 2014, Korea Economic Research Institute said that they accounted for nearly 27% of all workers in the country, which is over 8 points higher than levels considered normal. The Research Institute said an abnormally high proportion of self-employed workers can reduce the quality of employment and in turn weigh down the national economy. Korea's average is also substantially higher than that of the OECD and ranks the 4th highest behind Greece, Mexico, and Turkey. Although much is still unknown when it comes to what a Trump presidency in the U.S. will actually look like, one area that he's promised in detail on what he will do once in office is taxes. During his campaigning, Trump had pledged to cut the corporate tax rate by a whopping 20 percentage points to boost the American economy. But over here in Korea, the main opposition party is actually hoping to take things in the opposite direction by raising corporate taxes, citing the need to curb a growing fiscal deficit. Take a look.
No American company will pay more than 15% of their business income. We're reducing your taxes from 35% to 15%.
Arguing that free trade agreements and high taxes have driven out American companies from their homeland, President-elect Donald Trump proposed back in August that he would slash the U.S. corporate tax rate. The U.S. is not the only country riding on this trend of lowering corporate tax rates, as the latest report by the OECD shows that only 6 member nations increased their corporate tax rates between 2008 and 2015. It says the downward trend is accelerating as governments around the world are using their tax policies more aggressively to spur growth. As for Korea, under the previous Lee Myung-bak administration, the corporate tax ceiling was cut to 22% from 25% to spur investment. But now the main opposition Minju Party of Korea is demanding that be hiked back to 25%, saying that the past reduction has failed to boost investment, only allowing big companies to grow their cash reserves. So with Trump looking likely to hand out major tax cuts for businesses over in the US, which path should Korea take for its companies and the local economy?
And to tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-won from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
All right, so with the outlook for the global economy still clouded with weak growth, we're seeing countries around the world, including the U.S., moving towards lowering their corporate tax rates. So tell us more about this.
Well, dropping corporate tax became a hot potato in every country because it is an important part of the protocol to revive the economy. But the fact is, we do not yet know much about its effect in reviving economy. After crisis, some countries like UK, US, Canada, Japan, and Korea decreased corporate tax rate. On the other side, countries that suffered from a budget crisis like Greece, Chile, and Iceland increased their corporate tax rates.
Now, at this point, we're kind of wondering why then are Korea's opposition parties trying to raise corporate taxes?
Well, I think there are two major reasons behind the movements to increase corporate tax rate.
Okay.
The first reason is they want to fix unfair income distribution by redistributing tax revenues from the rich parties to the not rich parties. The second reason is they want to increase government's tax revenues without collecting more taxes from households. The only way to do that is increasing corporate tax.
All right. And like we heard in the report, the Korean government had lowered corporate tax rates during the previous Lee Myung-bak administration.
Right.
Now, has that helped the Korean economy?
Actually, no, that didn't much help of Korean economy. As we learned from the report, President Lee Myung-bak's administration decreased the corporate tax rate from 25% to 22%. But companies, particularly big companies, did not increase their employment and investment. They only accumulated cashes, and that amounts to almost 550 trillion won over 10 largest conglomerates in Korea.
Now, but then countries around the world are kind of moving towards lowering corporate tax rates. So if Korea moves in the opposite direction, then wouldn't there be concerns of seeing some negative side effects from doing that?
Exactly. There will be less foreign direct investment from foreign countries. And there is a serious resistance on increasing corporate tax, particularly from big companies in Korea. So I think they will find their new way to avoid the higher taxes, like by moving their business to foreign countries. And this is what exactly American corporations are doing today for avoiding 35% of the high corporate taxes.
Now, if Trump does cut corporate taxes by 20 percentage points once he's inaugurated in January, then what impact would this have on the Korean economy?
Well, as you said, Mr. Trump wants to decrease corporate tax rate from 35% to 15%. This is huge decrease of the corporate tax rates.
Right.
So I think if he really does it, that's going to be a trigger to lower corporate tax rate over major economies. For example, Korean companies are competing with United States corporations in the global market. So 15% of the corporate rate of the United States is 7% lower than that of the Korean corporate tax rate. So there will be stronger demand for a decrease in corporate tax rate in Korea.
All right. Well, but then with concerns that raising corporate tax rates could depress already depressed business sentiment here in Korea. So some are saying that we need to actually look for other ways to improve our fiscal balance.
Well, even though Korean economy is under recession, corporate tax revenue is increasing slowly. Actually, last year's 2015's corporate tax revenue was 45 trillion, but that has been increased to up to 51 trillion Korean won. So we can say that that is mostly due to the expansion of the taxation sources, which means that quite a few tax deductions and special tax treatments has been minimized by Korean government. I think this is a better way to improve fiscal situation without increasing corporate tax rates.
Oh, well, what rival parties here in Korea are continuing to talk over this, so we'll have to see how it pans out.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.